Great way of saying it. That was a great way of saying it. Good for you. All right, colored pens up. Let's see how we're doing with solving inequalities. Number one, what did you get? We'll start with Kezekiah, Tristan, and then Sharik. What'd you get?
X is less than 9.
Okay, what'd you get? Tristan? You got the same thing?
X is less than 9.
Aliana, did you get anything different? Same thing? The correct solution is X is less than 9. Number two, what did we get? We'll start with Brandon, Alicia, and then Anissa. Okay. Alicia?
X is less than 5.
You got the same answer?
X is less than 5.
You all got the same answer? X is less than 5. So, comments, questions on any of these? We'll start with Kayla and then Kamoy. Okay, if you didn't flip it. So what was your solution? Oh, you're saying at the end, you didn't flip the answer around. So you wrote X is greater than, I'm sorry, you wrote 5 is greater than X. Is that what you wrote? Well, that's the same thing. It's just not as good an answer as this one is. We want the X on the left, and you're going to see partially Y today. Okay? I would not mark it wrong, but especially this group of young people, we are very detail-oriented in this class. That's the kind of detail that you do need to be able to handle. Again, it's not a matter of right or wrong. It's a matter of what's the best way to represent something, okay? Good. Moy?
Number 2, rather than calculating, I got a big decimal, so I ended up
I believe it comes out exactly to X is less than 5. So if you got a decimal answer, I'm thinking you made a mistake somewhere along the way, and that's what led you. Okay, actually you do, but you just made a mistake. But you caught your own mistake already?
Huh?
You already found your own mistake?
I did -3
Okay. So you made a mistake, but now you see it. Good, and that's actually really great that you found your own. That's fantastic. Okay, it's a great way to learn. Are there any other comments, questions on today's warm-up? Okay. Got X is greater than 5. Okay.
When you divide it by 5 both sides,
Mm-hmm.
I thought,
Well, let's think of it this way. Let's not try to look through your work and find your mistake. Let's look at your answer. You suggest that X is greater than 5. You suggest X is greater than 5. So I want you to look at this and pick a number that would make this true. 6. Very good. Let's plug in a 6 right here and a 6 right here and see if it works. Okay? So let's do some mental math. -12 plus 1, that's -11. And now we got -2 times 3 is -6. Is -11 greater than -6? No. So 6 does not work, which would lead you to believe that this is wrong. And in fact, it is. Okay? So testing a solution from your answer, is a good way to double check and make sure you did it right. Okay? Comments, questions, and concerns? Okay, put the warm up to the side. The entire year so far has been a building process. We've talked about that a lot. I've talked and referred to the posters and the map in the back of the room about concepts we're studying now being connected to concepts we studied in the past. Today is going to be a very clear example of the building process. Today we're going to study the idea of a compound inequality. So a compound inequality uses the idea of inequalities that we studied last time. So what is a compound inequality? It's two inequalities connected by one of two words. It's connected by the word and, or it can be connected by the word or. What does it look like? Well, here's an example in words. All real numbers that are greater than 0 and less than or equal to 4. This is what it looks like. And so we have to actually learn how to read that. And here's how you start reading and getting used to this, is you always read from the X. We're used to reading left to right. So we immediately say 0 is less than X is less than or equal to 4. But that's not how you read it. You start from the X. So in this case, you start from the middle. And you say X is greater than 0 and that's where this word and comes into play, and is less than or equal to 4. So you're going to have to start thinking about how you read these, and I will be calling on volunteers to read and make sure you're starting from the X. Now, we always started from the X, but we never had to think about it because the X was always on the left, so it didn't really matter. But now the X is in the middle, and that's a little more unusual. So, now, graphing. So, graphing, and I will give you rulers if you don't have your own. Now instead of there being one number on our number line, there's two numbers that we have to be able to fit on our number line. Now, before, when there was one number, I told you to find that one number and put it in the middle, but now we can't do that because there's two numbers. Guys, I have other straight edges. Just grab a seat and I will help you in a moment. So we have to now fit a 0 and a 4. So it doesn't really matter where you put it. You could put the 0 over here and the 4 over here, or you could put the 0 over here and the 4 here. It doesn't really matter, as long as both numbers fit within the number line. So we'll put a 0 here. That's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and that's a -2. So our number line is labeled appropriately. And now we have two circles that we're going to put on. A circle for the number on the left and a circle for the number on the right. So we need to put a circle on the 0. But there's two different types of circles. So which type of circle am I going to use for the 0? Ania? Okay, why is it closed? Okay, so you said the right explanation, but you said the wrong circle. So you're right, it can't be equal to 0 because of this symbol, but then that means we would leave the circle open. When you fill in the circle, that's saying that that can be a solution. So the 0 is going to have an open circle on it. Now, the 4. We have to put a circle on the 4. Is it going to be an open circle or a closed circle? Catalina? That's right. That was a very good explanation. So we're going to put a closed circle on top of the 4. Now, in the past, when we had one circle, we shaded half the number line. We either shaded all the way to the right or all the way to the left. Today, you're going to see something different. Now we have one of two choices. Now we can shade either in between the two circles, or we can shade outside the circles. So I haven't told you yet, so look at the compound inequality and look at the number line. And which way do you think we would shade? Do you think we should shade in between, or do you think we should shade outside the circles? What do you think? Shade it? In between would make logical sense because the x is in between the 0 and the 4, which is saying all numbers between these two numbers. And so I'm representing that on a number line, and so I'm going to shade in between the two circles. And that is a compound inequality using the word and. Are there any questions on how we developed that idea or how we graphed it? Hezekiah? You're going to see in a moment. Okay, so just wait a minute and you'll see.
So that means and is like skewer for
That's right. The word and means shade in between. So Hezekiah already asked, well, what does the other one look like? So let's look. So now, what about an or inequality? Here's an example. In words, we could say something like, all real numbers that are less than -1 or greater than 2. So here's what that looks like as a compound inequality. And so here, there is no special way to write an or. We just write two inequalities and then put the word or in between them. So it's not so fancy, it's nothing really different. X is less than -1 or x is greater than 2. So an and inequality is written differently. It's written kind of like a range of numbers. Here's the smallest number, here's the biggest number, and the x is in between. This doesn't work the same way. We basically have two separate inequalities, and we connect them with the word or. There is no word in this one. Okay? So what does that look like when you graph it? So same idea, we need to graph two numbers. So I need two circles. So I have to fit a -1 and a 2 somewhere on this number line. So it doesn't really matter where you go. So we got -1, that's a 0, that's a 1, 2, 3, that's a -2. And now I need a circle to represent this part of the graph, and then I need a different circle for that one. So what type of circle do I need for the highlighted? What type of circle do I need for that? Go ahead, Anita. Open, very good. So we need an open circle on the -1. And now I need a circle on the 2. What type of circle will I put for that? Alicia? Yeah, an open circle again. Keep in mind that during classwork, homework, quiz, test, if you put a closed circle when it was supposed to be open, the whole thing is wrong. So it is a small detail, but it's an important detail. Now, we need to shade. We can either shade in between the two circles, or we can shade outside the two circles. Which way do you think we should shade for an or? Should we shade in between or on opposite ends? What do you think? Tristan? Outside? Kayla, what were you going to say? Okay, on the ends. Yeah, we're going to shade on the outside. So now we're going to shade, and this is what it's going to look like. We're going to shade here, and we're going to shade here. And on the and inequality, there were no arrows. There are no arrows because we have specific limits. Here we actually don't have any limits. It goes on forever in opposite directions. Sebastian, Brian, and then Tristan. How would this apply to real life? Well, you're going to see some examples during today's actually during the classwork. You're looking for like how would this apply to science or things that you would explore. You're going to see some examples as we work through classwork and homework. Okay? Off the top of my head, it's hard for me to just spout out a specific example. I apologize for that. Brian, Tristan, Hezekiah, and then Kevin.
For inequalities, will there be instances where the two arrows next to each other?
We're going to see. There might be. What do you think I should do as a teacher? I'm sorry? Okay, then that's what I'll do. Thank you. Okay, Catalina, Hezekiah, and then Catalina. Hezekiah. Let's work through some examples, and I want you to see if you can come up with your own answer to your own question. I think eventually you will be able to answer your own question. Okay?
In the last lesson, I asked what if the x was negative, and said I would find out, and I didn't find out, but I find out in this one.
Well, it's not that I'm hiding it from you, it's that you should have figured out the answer to it on your own. Okay? So I'll come back to that a little bit later. Okay? So this is what the compound inequalities look like in words, in math sentence, and then as a graph. Does anyone have any questions? So let's do some interpretation on our own, or I should say together as a group. You don't have to write the instructions, you just need to read the instructions. So we have a statement. All real numbers that are greater than or equal to -5 and less than -2. We want to translate that into an inequality. The first thing I would look for is the word and or the word or. And there might be more than one. So you have to find the one that actually connects the two. So I've already kind of done it for you because I italicized it. And so this is an and inequality. And so what that means is it's going to translate into something that has an x in the middle. It's going to have an x in the middle. And then we're going to have inequality symbol, and then a number on either end. And so it's our job to figure out what numbers go on either end, and then what symbol. Here's an important detail, and then I'll answer, there was a couple of questions already. But we have two numbers. We have a -5 and we have a -2. Number lines go from smallest numbers on the left to bigger numbers on the right, which means that we want the smaller number on the left and the bigger number on the right. So pick out the smaller number, and that's going to go on the left. So which number is the smaller number? Which number is smaller? Shelby? -5. So the -5 is going to go over here. The -2 is going to go over here. Now I have to decide on my symbols. All numbers that are greater than or equal to -5. So right here, greater than or equal to, should clearly tell you that that is the symbol. And less than -2, so there's no or equal to for the other one, so that is our inequality. So we have successfully, as a group, translated from words into a math compound inequality. So, Ania, and then there was another question. Ania, Alicia, and other questions. Go ahead. Okay. Alicia? No. Okay. Hezekiah? Okay, I can do that. Catalina, yes.
Why does it say all real numbers?
It's a fancy way of saying all numbers. The word real actually refers to something very specific that I don't talk about that much this year, but it will become more important a couple years from now. Kamoy and then Sheldon?
I don't get how you know it's like the equation of all real numbers.
This was given to us. We don't have to decide that. That's given to us in a statement.
And then you do a problem and you solve it. You can also find the rate.
Oh, you're talking about in the last homework, how to know whether it's all real numbers or no solution? Okay, so I can help you with that. So, is it always going to be in the middle? For an and inequality, yes, it should always be in the middle. Okay? So now we want a graph. So we need a number line, and we need a -5 and a -2 on the number line. So again, it doesn't really matter where you put it. -5, -4, -3, -2, -1, 0, 1, 2, 3. And now we need our circles. Circle on -5 because this has the or equal to is going to be closed. And you should just be working along with me. You guys already know this part. And the -2 does not have the or equal to, so that's going to be an open circle. But here's the part I do want to ask. Which way should I shade? Should I shade in between them or should I shade on opposite ends? A shade in between or opposite ends? Sebastian? In between. Very good. And so we're going to shade right like that. Any comments or questions on how we got from the words to the inequality to the graph? Okay? So, first you read the statement and you should immediately decide if it's going to be an and inequality or an or inequality. I've done some of the work for you. There are two ors. There's an or here and there's an or here. But this or is part of a phrase. Greater than or equal to. So that or is not the connecting or. This one is right here. So it does take a little bit of skill and practice to know which one is the right one. So this is the connecting or. So we're going to write an or inequality, and what that means is we're basically going to write two separate inequalities, x with a symbol and a number, or x with a symbol and a number. And again, we want the smaller number on the left, So we have two numbers, a 3 and a negative 3. I don't need to call on volunteers for that. Negative 3 is smaller, so the negative 3 is here. And the positive 3 is here. And now we just need to decide on the symbol we're going to use. So, all numbers that are greater than or equal to 3, well, that's over here. So greater than or equal to 3, or less than negative 3. Less than negative 3. And that is a compound inequality with the word or. Does anyone have any questions on how we did that?
Is it okay if you put the x is greater than or equal to 3 on the left and then the x is less than negative 3?
It is less significant than it is here. So I will say this. For an and inequality, the smaller number has to be on the left. Otherwise it doesn't make sense. Because on a number line, the smaller number is on the left. So we have the negative 5 here, we have the negative 5 here. It's less significant here because you basically have two separate statements that are kind of just being connected with the word or. But so that we're kind of getting into practice, I want you to think about it and I want you to put the smaller number on the left both ways. But would I mark it wrong? No, I would not mark it wrong. So now graphing. So again, we need both numbers to fit. So we've got a negative 3, negative 2, negative 1, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And now we need our circles. Open circle here. Closed circle here. And now which way do I need to shade? Do we need to shade in between or opposite ends? In between or opposite ends? Got 5, 6 people who know, 7 people. Eric? In between. So we. Some people who threw their hands up all of a sudden. I'm sorry, Elisa. Oh, you disagree? It's supposed to be opposite ends? Well, let me look. Hold on. This one had the word and we did in between. And this one has the word or. So yeah, it's going to be opposite ends. Okay, so we're going to be shading out here. And out here. So what it's saying is solutions can be over here or they can be over here. Okay? Comments, questions, concerns? Comments, questions? Okay, so that's just getting the basics down of how these compound inequalities. Example 2. Solve 5x minus 7 is greater than negative 27 and less than 18. And then graph the solution. I'm going to rewrite this so I have a little bit more space. So negative 27. So I often use your experiences from the past to help guide us on what to do now and in the future. So we have a compound inequality. We've never solved one of these before. But let me change it to see if I can open your eyes a little bit. So if I take this away, give me a thumbs up if you know how to solve that. Keep your thumb up if you know exactly what the first step would be. If you're not sure, then put your thumb down. Okay, good. Alicia, what would the first step be? Beautifully said. Add 7 to both sides. I love the way she said that. Put your thumbs down. Now let me back up for a second. So we know how to solve that. Now, what if I took this away? Give me a thumbs up if you know how to solve that inequality. Keep your thumb up. Keep your thumb up if you know exactly what the first step would be. Okay, Eric, what would the first step be? Say it again a little louder so they over the air can hear you.
Add 7 to both sides.
Okay. So did anyone notice anything about what the two students in the room said? Did anyone notice anything about what the two students said? What did you notice, Anissa? Okay, what did you notice, Sharif?
Same thing. I had 7 on both sides.
Okay, so they both noticed that they both said the same thing. So now take your experiences from the past and think about this new situation. So what do you think we do to solve that? I have a bunch of people who think they know. Kayla, what do you think?
I'm not sure.
Okay, what do you think, Kamoy?
I think you have to get X in the right.
Very good. Okay, that's true. So that's the goal. But I guess my question really was, what's the first step? So she was trying to say what she thought the first step was. You're right. That's the overall goal. Alyssa?
You could add 7 on both sides to either -27 or 18.
Okay, so that's a little bit different than what Kayla said. Brandon, what was your thought?
Add 7 to all, like, add 7 to 18.
Okay, well say what you said at the beginning, because I like the way you said it. Add 7.
All sections.
Okay. Well, that's a new word, but I guess I get the gist of what you're saying. So you're all saying something similar, and the way Brandon said it is actually the most accurate, is we add 7 to all sides. To solve an equation that just had this side, we added 7 to both sides. When I got rid of the other side, we added 7 to both sides. But now how many sides are there?
3.
Now there's 3. So now the word both doesn't apply because both means 2. So now we add 7 to all sides. And so our first step is going to be this. Add 7, and add 7. And we work our way down in columns just like we always did. So this is a column, and that's a column, and that's a column, and that's a column. There's a column, and there's a column. And so each vertical is a column. So add down. -27 plus 7 is -20. 5x and nothing is 5x. -7 and +7 cancel each other out. This symbol in nothing is that symbol. And now 18 plus 7 is 25. Does anyone have any questions about how or why we did that? Should logically make sense to you. If it doesn't, well, you can still do it. So now, how do we achieve the goal that Kamoy pointed out? How do we get the x by itself now? We got a lot of people who think they know. Zavari and then Ann. Zavari, what do you think we should do? What were you going to say? Yeah, I love the way he said that, actually. Divide everything by 5. And so we're going to divide, divide, and divide. Divide everything by 5, but you need to pay attention to that new rule. What's that new rule that we have to have floating around in our brains? What's that new rule? Anita? Very good. You said that beautifully. So should we flip the symbols here?
No.
No, but we still need to be aware of that rule. Because that one little detail is going to get you all messed up. So now we're going to work down again. Negative 20 divided by 5 is negative 4. I don't need to call on volunteers for this stuff. That cancels out, and now we've achieved our goal that Kamoy pointed out, is getting to x by itself. And then 25 divided by 5 is 5. And so we have solved the compound inequality. Does anyone have any questions or comments at this point? Sharik and then Brandon.
Okay, you know when you do the new rule, if you multiply or divide by a negative number, like you split the sign, but like in which cases, how do you know what sign to flip in a compound inequality in the end?
That's a good question. Anyone know how we know which one to flip? What do you think, Caleb? Okay, what were you going to say, Brian? Go ahead, what did she say? Okay, so yeah, they're right, and I love the way she described that. So not only did she say what she thought, but she was able to actually explain why she thought it. We are dividing everything, which means all the signs would need to flip. Okay? Excellent job. Now again, in this case, we don't have to flip the signs because we didn't divide by a negative number. Any other comments or questions before we graph? So now we need to graph. So we need number line. I apologize, I neglected to hand out rulers. If you need a ruler, I will hand out a few. If you have your own or any straight edge, of course, will work. Any straight edge at all. Share your rulers if you would. I don't really have enough for everybody. Or a lot of you have graph paper. You could just draw the line on the graph paper. And so now we need to graph this inequality, and it's a compound, and we just learned how to graph this. We need both numbers on the number line, so we have to make sure we space it out properly. So we need a negative 4. We're definitely going to need a little bit of space. So that's negative 4, negative 3, negative 2, negative 1, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now I've got it set up to graph. And now we're going to put two circles. One of them is going to be on the negative 4, and one of them is going to be on the 5. What type of circles do I need to use for this? Sebastian? Both of them? Yeah, both of them are going to be open circles. So I've got open, and on the 5, I've got open. Now the key new piece about shading. Where am I going to shade? Am I going to shade in between, or am I shading opposite ends? In between or opposite ends? Tristan? In between, very good. And it should be clear to you because the X is in between, so we are going to shade in between. Does anyone have any questions on how we solved this or how we graphed it? Anything at all?
Could you explain again how you know the circle is in the shape?
Sure. Does someone help us? How do we remember the open versus the closed? What is the determining factor? We got just a few people who can explain it. Go ahead, Alicia.
If it had a bar underneath the greater than the left-hand side, then you shade in the circle.
Okay, so you look here. If that has a bar underneath, then you fill in the circle. If there's no bar underneath, then you keep it open. Okay, same thing here for this circle. Okay? I missed somebody. Jada and then Kamoy.
Why can't you do like go that way from the
Why can't you what?
Why can't it be like to the left from the 5?
It is going to the left from the 5.
So like all the way. Like you see how the sign is on the left side?
Right? Oh, so you're saying, okay, they're both pointing to the left, so how come it doesn't just keep going?
Yeah.
Okay, you're misinterpreting what the arrows mean. You don't read the arrows that way. You start from the middle. You start reading from the X. So you read this, x is greater than, x is greater than negative 4 and less than 5. So it's actually, I see what you're saying, but really what's happening is the negative 4 becomes the bottom limit and the 5 becomes the upper limit. Another way to say it, negative 4 becomes the minimum and 5 becomes the maximum. Okay? Good. Kamoy?
It's what you said, but like, will there ever be a situation where we would have to do it, like say from the 5 all the way to the end?
You will see a couple of unusual cases pop up, but you don't need to worry about them right now. Okay?
Would you say that the x would be on this one?
Just wait till it happens, and then we're going to explore it at that point. Okay? It's not something I'm really focusing on in any way. Okay? Hezekiah? No. So you're talking about a situation that looks like this, which I do see every year. Students do. Is that what you're talking about? No, we will never see that. It actually makes no sense. Okay? So you will not see that. It's a good question, because every year I see students put that on quiz or test, because you get confused, because there's so much that you have to know. Okay, so let's see how you do on your own with one. Checkpoint number 1. Solve that, and then graph it. You got 2 minutes. It should be plenty of time. All right, so let's see not only who is able to solve it, who's able to say their answer correctly. Let's see who's able to say it correctly. So we got a bunch of confident people. We will start with Zabari, Aliana, and then we'll go to Jada.
X is greater than or equal to 2 and less than or equal to 6.
Okay.
2 is less than x is
You can pass. X is greater. Go ahead, continue. X is greater than or
equal to
very good and less.
than or equal to
Very good. See, you did it. Jada?
x is greater than or equal to 2 and less than or equal to 6.
Very good. So So everybody agrees, and that is correct. X is greater than or equal to 2 and less than or equal to 6. And here's what your graph should look like. Comments, questions, concerns? Good. Let's continue. And what do we do with an OR inequality? So, solve 3x plus 1 is less than or equal to negative 2, or 7x minus 3 is greater than or equal to 18, and then graph the solution. Now, the first thing I want to clarify is that this is one inequality. That is one compound inequality. It's two of them connected with the word or, but it is one compound inequality. So now, we've never solved one of these before. But based on your experience and what you've seen so far today, how do you think we will solve this one? Good, we got some people with ideas. What do you think, Anissa?
You subtract 1 to both sides on the first one, and then you add 3 to the second.
Okay, so we treat them differently. So now let's back up a little bit. Give me an overview. So what do you think the overall approach is to solving an OR inequality? And she was right, by the way, but what do you think? Put it into words. Sharif?
I think like you should solve each for the compound inequalities. You solve both like inequalities separately, and then find x for both, and then you have your answer.
Good.
X is less than or equal to this, or x equals greater than or equal to.
Good. And so we actually solve them independently, solve them separately, but then at the end we put it back together. So Anissa was right. She was perfect on her first step. So you can actually solve them simultaneously, or you can do the one on the left and then do the one on the right. I don't care either way. So in this one, we're going to subtract 1 from both sides. In this one, we're going to add 3 to both sides. We do have the word OR in between, and that's going to carry down to the end when we get to the end down here. So this cancels here, and we get 3x is less than or equal to negative 3. And this cancels here, and we get 7x is less than or equal to 21. So, most of us can do the mental math, but you have to be careful because when you do the mental math, you have to be aware if the mental math you did involved a negative number being multiplied or divided. So we can do the mental math here. What will this become? What will the left become? Ania? So this will be x, and this is a negative 1, but do we need to flip the symbol at all? What do you think we need? Do we need to flip it? Dinar, do we need to flip it? Okay, we don't need to flip it because we divided both sides by positive 3, so that's going to stay the same. And then what about the right-hand side? What's the end result on the right-hand side? Shelby? So we get x, and we get the 3, but do we need to flip that one?
No.
No, we didn't multiply or divide by a negative number, so that's going to stay the same. And we connect them with the word OR. And that is your solution. Let me warn you now, my class is very detail-oriented. If you forget to connect them with the word OR at the end, I will mark it wrong. Because it's saying something different if you don't put the word OR. And I'm telling you right now, I've been teaching the class for 7 years, and every year people on quizzes and tests forget to put the word OR because you start to get stressed out and you forget the details. So you have to prepare yourself to the level that meets my expectation, which is you won't forget those details. Does anyone have any questions about that? Okay, so we should be getting very good at graphing already. We've done 3 of them. So now I'm going to go quite a bit faster. So either do it on your own or follow along with me. I think a few of you have already done it. So we have the -1 over here. That's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And now we need circles. And you should already know what type of circles we're using. Shouldn't be hard for you to figure out. But the one question I will survey the class on is which way am I going to shade? Am I going to shade between or am I going to shade opposite ends? Which way am I going to shade, Aliana? That's right. We shade here. Shade there. Shade here. And in this case, we need the arrows on the ends because the arrows say that this will go on and on forever in these directions. Does anyone have any questions about how we solved this? How come we came up with this? How we got the graph? Anything at all? Kamoy and then Kezekai?
We don't have to put 0 in the middle.
Nope. Kezekai? Okay, but now I have a question to try and get some more thinking involved. Could someone make a statement about these numbers here? Any statement at all? And I'm not really looking for anything in particular. Anything you can say about it is acceptable. Maria, Anne, Ania, and then Sebastian.
Those numbers cannot be solved.
Okay, good thought. And? Not a solution. Okay, Neve?
Wait.
No. Okay. I'll give you a moment to gather your thoughts and I'll come back. Okay, Sebastian. Okay, so that's a different way of saying what Maria said. That was interesting. And I like the contrast of those thoughts. They actually mean the same thing. Okay? You ready or you want another moment? Okay, great thought. Come on.
How do they know all this?
Well, besides being very bright young people, they're just paying attention and learning that. Kamoy, what is the purpose of the red? I mean, that was the actual point of this. Is I wanted someone to wonder, well, how do they know that? So, what does the red line mean? That's not really what the red line means. Could someone put into words what these red lines represent? What do the red lines represent? Because there are some students in the class who are missing that piece. Kezekai? Very good. So the red is representing the solutions that will make this true. So Kamoy, if I pick any number over here, if I pick this spot right there, that number will make this whole thing a true statement. If I pick this number right there, that will make this a true statement. If I pick a number way over here, it will make it a true statement. But what Maria and Sebastian so well articulated, and Anne chimed in as well, is that if I pick one of these numbers, it will not make a true statement. These are not solutions, these are. Okay? That's right. So all I asked was, well, then what are these here? No, I'm saying these right here. These numbers will not make this true. Kayla, you had a comment or question? Does the right side of the number line always what? Oh, that's a good question. It's a very good question. Do the numbers only fit in here and make this part true? Because with an or inequality, this word right here means that if either one of them are true, then the whole thing is true. So if this comes out true, but this side does not, it's still a true statement. That's what an or is. And that's a hard concept for young people to understand. It's a hard concept for adults to understand. So Kayla, I would have to do some experimenting myself. I think you might be right that this will only make one of those true. You're right. Okay? Very good. So, checkpoint number 2. Let's see how you do on your own. You got 2 minutes. Quite a few people still finishing up. Take another 30 seconds. It's okay. All right, so what was your solution? Let's see how we did. Again, lots of confident people. We'll start with Alyssa, and then we'll go to Maria, and then Kayla.
X is less than negative 1, or X is greater than 6.
Okay, what'd you get, Maria? Go ahead, say it one more time, because I got...
X is less than 1 or X is greater than 6.
That's the same thing you said? Okay. Kayla? Same thing? That is correct. We got X is less than 1 or X is greater than 6. And here's what your graph looks like. And my arrows were actually missing. So let me fix that. Comments or questions on how we did this one? Jada and then Anita? What do you mean you mean when you put it at the end? Yeah, if you forget the word or, then unfortunately it is wrong. Now, right now I'm not marking it wrong, but you have to get in the habit. I don't have a special Miss Cooper memory device to help you with that. It's just something you just got to get. It's about building a good habit. If you can come up with a memory device that I would be more than willing to pass on to the class and to other students in the future, come up with a memory device to help us. But it's just a matter of knowing what the answer is supposed to look like. Okay? Anit? Okay, gather your thoughts, and I'm going to come to you individually, and you tell me what you're thinking about. Alicia. Well, it's clearly, I think we all understand that the or is supposed to be there, but how do we not forget it? The easiest thing to do is put the or at the end, right at the beginning. So what I have done in the past is I've said to myself, okay, this is an or inequality. I sometimes forget, so I'm going to write the word or right now. I'm going to put my x, and then I'll go back and solve it and fill it in. That might help a little bit. Okay? Good, we're doing well so far. So now we're going to backtrack a little bit. So example 4, solve this. No. So now we did an and inequality, and then we did a checkpoint, and then we did an or inequality, we did a checkpoint. Now I want to go back and make sure we didn't lose what we had discovered. So how do we solve this one? What would the first step be? Tristan?
You subtract the 1 from all sides.
Good, you said that beautifully. Subtract 1 from all sides. So we'll subtract 1 here, We'll subtract 1 from all the sides. Subtract 1, and subtract 1. This will get a -8. This will cancel, and we've got -2x. And then -3 and -1 is -4. What's the next step to solve this compound inequality? What's the next step? And? Good. Divide all sides by -2. So we get -8 divided by -2 is +4. This cancels out, and we've got our x. And then -4 divided by -2 is +2. So did anyone notice anything that... Oh, we got a lot of people who noticed. People falling out of the chairs with enthusiasm. Brandon?
The number on the left side is the number. Is less than the number on the right side.
Yeah, the number on the left all of a sudden became bigger than the number on the right. That's really important observation. Did anyone notice anything else that happened? What else happened? Anissa? That's right. This is the most important detail that you need to remember, is we divided by a negative number. And that means that we have to flip all the symbols. And guess what? Brandon's observation is kind of a symptom of what happened. if we don't flip the symbols, this won't make any sense. So this symbol has to flip, and so does this symbol. So now it will actually make sense. Otherwise, it wouldn't have made sense at all. Okay, I have some people frantically wanting to share because maybe they noticed something else. But 1, 2, 3. I'm going to get all of you chime in, but before we do, I want to make sure we understand what just happened. So this was the rule, that if we multiply or divide by a negative number, we have to flip the symbol. So we didn't have a choice. It's not something you choose to do. You have to flip the symbol from here to here. Okay? But now something else happened as well, maybe. I don't know, there's people who had something else to observe. Brian, then Alyssa, and then Zabari.
You didn't need to flip the sign because you need to flip it twice because A, the large number's on the left side, and B, you divided by a negative. All you need to do is just flip the number.
Okay. You're right. Now, I think that would confuse people if that's what I did. If you're able to do that and keep it straight in your head, then by all means do it. But I think most of my students in all my classes would get confused by just doing that. So we are going to do what you said, but we're going to take the long way around. Alyssa.
I also saw at the top that says reversing both inequalities.
Yeah, I kind of gave it away. I kept meaning to take this off, but I kind of gave it away right there. So that's kind of a clue. Zabari. Okay. Thank you for using a sing-songy voice. That makes everything so much nicer. So Brian's point is this. Right now, this is the correct solution. However, it's not written correctly because I told you before that the smaller number has to be on the left. Otherwise, it doesn't make any sense. Because on a number line, the smaller numbers are on the left. So why would we have the smaller number on the right? It doesn't make any sense. So now what Brian is saying is we have to flip the entire thing around. Everything, the entire expression, the entire inequality has to be flipped around. So here's what's going to happen. The 2 is going to go to the other side. This inequality symbol is going to flip. Everything's going to flip around. Okay? So we've got 2. Those are equivalent. They are the same thing, but this is written properly. Okay? Comments or questions on why we flipped and then why we flipped again? Because that's hard to understand. Anil.
So if you were doing
Well, first of all, you're not taking the FCAT, you're taking the EOC. And on the EOC, they would not try to trick you with something like that. They're going to try and trick you with other things, but if it was a multiple choice question, they would not give you these 2 as the answer. They would probably give you this one as the possible answer. Okay? They wouldn't give you both of those and expect you to know that this one is better than that one. Okay? Jada. Right, and the rule is that if we multiply by a negative number that we need to flip the symbols. So that's why we did this. Okay? Good. So let's see how you do on your own. One final checkpoint. Let's see. I know we didn't graph, but in the interest of time, I'm just going to skip over that just for that one question. So checkpoint number 3. Go ahead and solve this. You've got 2 minutes. If you end up needing a few extra seconds, I'm not going to punish anybody.
Good afternoon, teachers and students. It is now time for the afternoon announcement. As captain of the day, the questions with names solved and explained with lines under it are worth 4 points. Yearbooks are on sale now. They are only $35.
Okay, I'm going to reveal the answer while the
Boarding room 29.
I'm going to reveal the answers while the
Special entities of
announcements are going, so you can move along.
Attention all 8th graders, your friends are all striving for a 6.0 on that writing assessment. Attend writing camp and earn prizes and extra credit and attending writing camp early. Writing camp begins December 7, 2013 from 9 to 12. Turn in your forms by December 2nd, 2013. See your language arts teacher for details. No hoodies are allowed. If it is needed, it will be taken and housed until parents pick it up before or after school only. Jackets that zipper button down are permitted.
Okay, so I'm going to give you your homework first, and then I'll come back to this question. So draw a line of question.
Brandon Scott, please report to the front office. Brandon Scott, please report to the front office.
Brandon.
There is no book lineup for today. Again, there is no book lineup for today. That's all for the announcements. Teachers, please get your classes ready for dismissal and have a wonderful and safe Thanksgiving break.
I don't know about the same, but I'm ready to start.
Hopefully safe. If not,
Hashtag awesome. How about
Oh my gosh, I really need it.
It's also that. No. Yes.
Okay, so I'll come back to this in a moment. So the checkpoint, the checkpoint, first of all, I don't have a lot of time to go over it, and it's unfortunate that Catalina was out today because she kept asking, what happens if you have negative x? So could someone now articulate what happens when you have a negative x? What is one of the things that results? Zabari?
Well, you have to go
And so,
you have to switch symbols around.
that's right. So a negative x is a negative 1x. So you have to multiply everything by negative 1, and that then flips the symbol around. So that's something that you either figured out already because there was an example of it already, or you just instinctively knew. Okay? So, we're not doing classwork today. Your homework, again, was problems on 392, and then the Ready to Go On is designed to help you get ready for your quiz. I'm sorry, I wrote test. It's supposed to be a quiz. Quiz is 6. I'd like to be able to get through my statement. 6.1 to 6.4. It's just the stuff that we've done so far. Will be next Wednesday. So let me rewrite this because I didn't do a very good job. It is going to be 6.1 to 6.4. 6.1 to 6.4 next Wednesday. I apologize.